This is a Leatherman Rebar, and these are the pivots from a Leatherman Sidekick or Wingman. They're the same. And apparently, what we're going to do today is swap out these pivots on the Leatherman Rebar for these a little bit more accessible pivots from the Leatherman Sidekick or Wingman. To do this, we're going to start by just taking apart one side. We'll start with one side. We'll see how long this takes. One side of the Leatherman Rebar. So I've got some of our wrenches here. Drop those in place. And we're just going to crack loose one of these pivots and see where the journey takes us. I have not tested this yet. It was suggested by a viewer during last week's live streams. I think it was last Wednesday. We stream a disassembly extravaganza, chat EDC, etc. Have a good old time. And then we slow things down on Mondays or Tuesdays. Today's Tuesday. Slow things down for these live modification videos. So, just popped out the pivot there. That's the. Let's set this aside real quick. Let's take some measurements because I did this last week, but I've forgotten. Here's the rebar pivot. So diameter is going to be, if we ignore the flats on it, it's going to be 4.75 millimeters. Let's grab the Sidekick pivot, which has no flats, 4.74. So we should be good on the diameter. Lengthwise, we are at 12.38 on the Sidekick. And on the rebar pivot, we are at about 13.4. So they're a little bit longer. I don't think that's going to be an issue, but we are going to try it. The other thing that I'm not sure about, if we reach in here and grab some tweezers, these are the spacers that come in the Leatherman Rebar quite often. You can maybe make out that on the left and right there is a flat side. It's not completely round. Those interact with the rebar pivot so the pivot cannot spin, or the washer doesn't spin when the tools next to it move. Now, let's try slipping that onto a Sidekick pivot. I think we are going to have an issue, and I'm not sure how we're going to overcome this. Potentially by brute force. But you can see that even though those pivots are the same diameter, the Sidekick pivot does not have those flats. So it does not want to drop in place as we had hoped. Yeah, just doesn't want to go. So I'm not sure. There should be some keyed washers inside this rebar, but we're going to brute force it. This was, did I say this was suggested by a viewer? I did. So if this doesn't work, it's all their fault. The pivot, we can just keep that brass punch in there and we'll just slide the pivot along it so we don't lose anything in the process. But I am immediately feeling resistance. This may be a no-go, guys. And if this is a no-go, that's okay because that is how these videos might go. Let me grab a rebar frame to show you what's happening here. So here is a spare frame. And on this side here, we've got that keyed section. Top and bottom in your view, it is a flattened section. So we cannot push the screw or the pivot in from that side. We may have to go from the other side. There's no flats milled there, so that should work. And it's also worth mentioning why we're even attempting this. A lot of people find difficulty with these sort of knurled screws. You've got to have specialty wrenches, which we sell. But the Wingman pivots are a T10 drive, so a lot more accessible to a lot more people. So let's figure out how we're going to do this. I'm going to grab another punch, and we're going to follow that first punch through with the second punch. Okay. And now we're going to try inserting the pivot from the opposite side. Let's see how this goes. Not off to a great start. I can get it through the frame though, so that's better than it was on the other side. Again, this is a learning experience, so we'll find out if it works the way we want. I did get through the first tool, but I think I'm hung up. Let me pull this off camera just to see a little closer Yes, I am hung up on one of those spacers. So it's not a direct drop in. Sometimes you can force it through, but it will cause some issues. Oh yeah, we're just hung up on that. Okay, so plan B for today is going to be to swap out those keyed washers. I think we can make this work if we remove those keyed washers. So I'm just going to grab the whole tool stack at once. I'm going to slide out the punch. We can lay these out so we can replace them in the correct order. So the knife blade, there's that keyed washer, the flat head, the awl, and the small flathead. Then we've got the key ring, another keyed washer, and our file. So we sell spacer packs on our website, and not to keep harping on that, but we do. And so I'm going to grab a couple of spacers out of here that should be similar in thickness. Here's where, there it is. Here's our spacer. On the left and on the right is the Leatherman spacer. So very, very similar, except ours are not keyed in that way. They are about 0.1 millimeters thick, nominal dimensions. And the Leatherman ones are about 0.14, close enough for jazz. So let me slide these two keyed washers out of the way, and we can reassemble this tool with our new setup. So first thing is that pivot is going to go in place, and then we will drop in the file. And I'll grab a pair of tweezers here to place in our spacer. You could probably put this together with 0 spacers and not really have an issue. You just have to tighten the frame up a little bit extra. But we have them here, so we might as well. There's that spacer in place. Next comes the keyring attachment, or the lanyard attachment. I'm just slowly working that pivot through as we go. The more space we have, the easier it is to get them on, but we need a little bit protruding through the tool so that they don't fall off. Here is the large flathead. And then we're going to get one more spacer. I'm going to set this down for just a second. See if I can do this two-handed for once. And just holding that pivot kind of in place, we can take that washer, let me get centered here, and add it onto the stack. These are a lot easier to drop in place since they are not keyed. And then next is the knife blade. Oh, I lost a tool in there. That's why it felt so loose. Which one did we lose? The large flat screwdriver. Let's drop that back on. Nice and fiddly for us. And now we'll add that washer back on again. Uh-oh. Part of the reason we do these live is so you can see all of the headaches that someone who's done this a lot goes through. They can be finicky. Now that that blade's on, I'm just going to make sure this lock has popped out of place just a little bit. So let's drop that in place, and we should be good to go. I think actually, since this won't go through the frame, I think we're actually helped by the fact that that pivot is just a little bit shorter. So let's go ahead and finger tighten the pivot screw. There we go. Now nothing can come completely loose. And I'll grab a screwdriver here with, that's a specialty bit I don't need. I'll grab a T10 here. And we'll tighten it up and see how that goes. Kind of an interesting modification. So you're going to have a little bit more clumping. And that's the clumping is just when multiple tools come out at once. But honestly, on this side of the rebar at least, it's not that big of an issue. See, those came out a little bit. It's It's not that big of an issue. If you wanted to, you could take the Sidekick pivot and you could just file flats on two opposite sides, and I think you would be a-okay to make this work. Maybe we'll do that in a future video. But just like that, you can see the difference here. So you've got the original pivot. We would need the specialty wrenches to open up, but these are just a standard T10 Torx bit on the Sidekick pivots. And let's confirm everything works okay. The knife blade comes out, locks in place, unlocks. Does it unlock? Why isn't it unlocking? Oh, operator error? Operator error. Unlocks fine. File opens, unlocks okay. Middle tools, let's just try one. They should all be the same. Yes, those all work as well. So that is a viable option. We had to go through a couple of hoops there, but nothing too crazy. Let's try swapping out the other one just for fun, and we can show this off in a future video perhaps. So again, always have the tools so they open to the right, and hold that wrench on the back so it's not spinning. And then you can just spin the top one. That bottom side is the keyed side of the pivot, so you don't want to spin that, or you can bind things up in an unpleasant way. So we'll get those out of the way. We are going to drop this in, set that aside. And the whole tool stack came loose at once, so that's okay. On this side, I actually wonder if there is a keyed washer. Yes, there is. Hiding in between the can opener and the serrated blade. There's also another one here. Let's drop these all in place. There's another one here on the saw blade between the saw and the Phillips screwdriver. So since we're here, we might as well put the other pivot screw in. It's going to come in from this side. And so that saw will go on first. And I'm going to need to grab a couple of more of our thinnest washers. One, and either grab one or I grab 13 every time. So we've got two of those there. Let's just get this saw blade situated close to its final resting place. Grab our washer and drop that on. Then comes our Phillips screwdriver. Make a little bit more room there. There we go. Phillips screwdriver. I was going to say is on, but it's not. That's what I get for jumping the gun and being optimistic. There goes the Phillips screwdriver. Then there's this nice beefy washer. These do not need to be replaced because they are not keyed in the same way that those thin ones are. So in theory, this should be no problem. And in practice as well. We'll slip in the can opener. It kind of went into the locked position, so I'm just going to unlock it and close that up. One more thin washer here. Slip that in place and push the pivot through. Is it through all the way? Oh, I wonder if I have the wrong pivot. I believe I may have the wrong pivot here. This one is much, much shorter than the previous one. Let's address that. So I'm just going to use the punch, pop right through. And let's see if there's... I think we might have a shorter version of the pivot. Or I'm crazy and doing something else wrong. No, this is the same length. Why? What is it that I'm missing here? Let's try it again. Oh, now it's all the way through. Interesting. I think I just made a operator error again, which is not unusual on this channel. There we go. So you can see that pivot's a little bit shorter. Maybe you can't see, but I can see. It's a little bit shorter, maybe not as far as you would want it ideally, but for this application, I think it'll be all right. And we can tighten that up and see if everything works. Make sure I didn't make any other mistakes that I'm not aware of, as is wont to happen. And here we go. The Phillips driver opens and locks just fine. You can see that clumping issue, so you do have to press that can opener back in, but that serrated blade opens and locks okay, and so does the saw blade. So I think we're pretty okay. Kind of an interesting modification. I'd like to try filing down the pivots to try and allow the keyed washers to be used there. But otherwise, that is a quick little modification to the Leatherman Rebar using the pivots from a Sidekick or Wingman. And makes it a lot more accessible and easy to tune. If you wanted to tweak the size, you could do that with just any standard Torx driver. See right there, we've tightened it up maybe a little too much, but that is our mod. We'll jump into Q&A for our members in just a moment. If you are watching after the fact in our Mod Monday series, hope you'll consider becoming a channel member where you can watch these modifications live and get your questions answered. And if you're watching live, thank you for being here. Thank you for being a member. Let's get into the live chat Q&A thing.